Hi, this is Gareth Ainsworth, and you're listening to the Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome along to the latest edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. Lots to bring you in the next hour as we count down to kick off on Sunday at 12:30. The visit of Portsmouth to Adams Park in a televised game. We'll hear from the manager, who will also remind us what time of year it is, in case there's any doubt at all. We'll catch up with Phil in a few moments' time as well to build up to that game. We'll continue our focus with ex-players, thanks to the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association. Graham McKenzie, we'll be hearing from him, a midfielder come winger from the 70s who has not been seen on a field in this area for more than 40 years, but he was at the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association annual dinner last week. We'll be hearing from him. We'll chat to Craig as well to bring us the latest from Wycombe Wanderers Women. They played on Sunday. Perhaps you took up the offer, a very special offer on for season ticket holders of the men's team to pop along to the Burnham Stadium and see high-flying Ascot in action. We'll find out the latest and who's still to come for them in the remainder of the season, and players to watch and that sort of thing, with Craig on the way as well later on this hour. But first, we often like to start the show with some highlights from the last game. Oh no, there isn't a last game. Whoops, no, that won't work. We can't there wasn't a game on Saturday, but we did speak to Phil last week, of course, you might recall, and set out with him his proposals for the Saturday, because he wouldn't be bringing us live match commentary on Wanderers TV or Wycombe Sound. Here's what he got up to.
I went to Wingate and Finchley versus Enfield Town in the Isthmian Premier because I scanned all the fixtures everywhere and there wasn't really anything going on in London. So I thought, well, I need to go to a game really, because it's always nice to go to a game as a fan and maybe have a couple of drinks and a few beers and watch a match, something that as a commentator I don't get to do. So very lucky to be a commentator, but when I can, I like to kind of watch a game if we get a chance, just as a fan. And I thought maybe I might be able to find the next Chris Farino, who it turned out played at Wingate and Finchley for a bit. So yeah, that's what I did on Saturday. And it was very good and an enjoyable experience.
Because your options we discussed are rather limited by industrial action on the railways, but brilliant that you managed to get to a fixture. Yeah,
I walked. Wingate and Finchley is about 3.7 miles from my house, so I was able to walk there and get a bus back. So yeah, no trains were used, even if they were on strike. So yeah, it was good. Really good experience, and I have to say, like popping down to lower league and non-league is really good because you can wander around, you can watch the game from any part of the stadium. You can change positions, walk around, change stands even. Great food, bumps into a couple of old mates, and then a couple of drinks. And the game was pretty good as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Didn't see the next Anis Rometti or Chris Farino. That's not to say they weren't there to my untrained eye, but yeah, no one stood out. But yeah, good game.
You didn't bring any players away with you and say, look, you could do a job.
Sign here, lads. Come on.
This way.
No, none of that. No.
Must have been nice for the players and manager, though, to have that time, a bit of a break from the busy fixture schedule and really kind of preparing for the game coming up on Sunday, though.
Yeah, it was one of the questions I asked Gareth last time we spoke to him after Cheltenham, because it was a disappointing performance as well as a disappointing result. And then looking at down the barrel of a 15-day break in between games, you think, well, is it a good time to have this break? And I suppose if you look at it, if you were going into that break on a really good run of wins and form, then you wouldn't want to stop playing. So maybe it was a good opportunity just to kind of take stock a bit, rest up. Obviously, they've been working hard at the training ground in between as well. But I don't know, just take stock of where they're at this season. 5 points off the playoffs. It's a pretty congested league. I think there's all still to play for, but it's been inconsistent and stop-start for Wycombe in terms of their form and performances and results. So maybe it's come at a good time. I think we'll find out on Sunday, won't we, whether it's a good or a bad time. But yeah, I'm sure they would have used the circumstances to their best advantage, as Gareth Ainsworth always likes to do.
And we've discussed recently as well how hard the team's been hit by injuries. And as I say, it must be a great opportunity for them to recover their fitness too.
Yeah, I think, we've got a few coming back now. A few have come back too, and it's been probably a good opportunity for them to continue to build their fitness, although they can't get that match sharpness up at the training ground. But, I spoke to Josh Scowen this week, and it was really interesting to chat to him about, those 2 games that he came back from his 2-month injury. So he's got that bit of game speed up as well. But he was just sort of, good just to kind of spend a few more days up at the training ground and working on that fitness. So important to Wycombe Wanderers, Josh Scowen as well. So, yeah, I think it's just hopefully giving a few more days for players coming back and getting their fitness as well. So we'll see. And I'm sure Gareth Ainsworth will be looking at changes as well from that team that did start against Cheltenham. So it'll be interesting to see what options he's got.
And fans will be hoping for a return of the battling qualities that have been shown previously, and also obviously cutting out those defensive errors too.
Yeah, I mean, we had that run of set pieces, didn't we? And looking at Sunday's opponents, Portsmouth, Danny Cowley takes a very similar approach to the game to Gareth Ainsworth. So I think set pieces will be key. They're always tight games against Pompey, and they're always tight games when it's Danny Cowley in charge as well. I remember some games against Lincoln when he was in charge between the two clubs, and I think one of those games away at Lincoln, I don't think we even needed a ball for that game. It was, he could have just let them sort of grapple it out in the centre circle for 90 minutes. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this one pans out. The last time he played an early kickoff on a Sunday, I think, it was a 3-3 draw against Sunderland. So it would be great if there's that much excitement. But I think whatever happens with Wycombe after their run of form, I think we'll just take any form of win at home against Pompey on Sunday, really. If it's a 1-0 and it's a scrappy goal, then so be it. But yeah, I think to do that, we'd have to cut out the defensive errors and make sure we're watertight as set pieces against what will be a very competitive Pompey team.
Great opportunity for fans to come along and back the team, obviously, and two sides, obviously, who are going for promotion as well.
Yeah, Pompey, a big club in League One, not the biggest in League One, ironically. We've got some bigger teams in there as well, but Fratton Park is a fantastic stadium. They fill it up regularly. They've got a high-profile American owner as well. So the pressure is on for those guys to do well. And I think anything outside of the top six for them would be seen as a massive disappointment, as it would be for Wycombe because of where we've been in recent time as well. So this is a bit of a marker for Wycombe because we've had games against, and I say this with all due respect, against the likes of Port Vale, Cambridge, Cheltenham, these teams here, they're teams in Forest Green. These are teams more of our sort of size and stature and similar history. Whereas you don't have to roll the clock back too far to find that Pompey were, winning the FA Cup, being in the Premier League, etc. Of course, they've had their problems, but yeah, this is a bit of a game against what I would say one of the big boys in the division and a team that's expected to be up there. And historically, under Gareth Ainsworth, we always seem to lift ourselves for these games, but we've seen a bit of a change in the psyche of this team, haven't we? Because we always used to be able to come back when we were a goal down, and that fighting spirit, and that doesn't seem to be as intense as it has been in previous years, and we're a little bit in transition, I think. So I think Sunday will be a really good indicator as to where we are in that transition process.
And for any supporters that won't be able to make the game, obviously it's on TV as well, and sounds really interesting with the innovation that's been put into that and the access that fans will get. It doesn't sound like the manager quite will be delving into what you have for breakfast and that sort of thing, but it's a great opportunity for supporters to get sort of some behind the scenes stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's interesting what the EFL and Sky are looking at. I mean, Sky are just sort of kicking their heels this month, aren't they? Because they haven't got any World Cup coverage. So I think they're taking a really good attitude to it and thought, right, let's see what we can do with this game and look at about how it can be applied to the football coverage moving forwards. And, great that they've chosen this fixture, Wycombe Wanderers versus Pompey. I think it's the only domestic TV game on Sunday. I think there's another game on Sunday. I think England are playing Senegal, but we're all really worried about the Wycombe Pompey game, really. But yeah, I think I was speaking to Gareth about it the other day, and he kind of touched on the American nature of it, of this sort of access to all areas and this sort of insatiable appetite for fans and stuff to find out more and more. And it kind of goes against the grain, doesn't it? Because we all know Gareth is incredibly secretive about injury news and other stuff in general. And football managers see the dressing room as very much their domain, and what goes on, behind that closed door is very much down to them. And they like to keep it that way. So yeah, we'll see how that works out because, I don't think they'll be able to broadcast much of what's said at half time in either changing room. They tend to be quite feisty places, but yeah, let's see what happens with it. It'd be interesting. So, if you want, I can ask Gareth what he has for breakfast if you want after the game.
Yes, please. Yeah, it'd be good to know. You might know already. It sounds like a brilliant encounter. Thank you so much, Steve, for your time. Lots to look forward to.
No, nice one. It's on TV, but more importantly, it's on Wycombe Sound as well, Colin. Let's not forget.
Oh, yes, very innovative there as well. We should mention that. Great to chat to Phil, of course, the head of audio and broadcast at Wycombe Wanderers, host of Ringing in the Blues, and also, of course, the excellent match commentator on Wanderers TV and here on Wycombe Sound as well. He and Wycombe Wanderers staff off for their Christmas do this evening at the Hellfire Comedy Club at Wycombe Swan Old Town Hall. You might have heard him mention a little earlier on that he caught up with Josh Scowen this week as well. So I thought it'd be really nice to share that with you. And of course, Josh and the rest of the players have been enjoying a bit of time off.
We can go away, spend time with the family and kind of forget about football for a few days. So the boys are feeling good. We've got some fresh legs now and ready to kick on.
And how are you getting on? Because you had that long break for injury, then came back just before this break.
Feeling good. I think the rest come at a good time for me because obviously I had 2 weeks like non-stop, and then it's come at a good time for me to refresh and now ready to kick on.
That match sharpness that everyone talks about, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Was it frustrating because you'd really got into your groove this season, hadn't you, in that midfield position, and then that injury came probably at the very wrong time for you and the club?
Yeah, for me it was very frustrating. Well, I felt good. I felt, I was picking up some results, and like you say, I was feeling sharp, and it's just one of them things that happened. But I'm glad I'm back now, and I'm ready to kick on for the rest of the season.
It came in the Accrington Stanley game. On the commentary we had Wycombe Wanderers legend Steve Brown, who played very similarly to you did, lives a tackle. He was absolutely waxing lyrical about your performance that night. Yeah. And then that was the last time we saw you. It happened in that game?
Yeah, it happened in the game, and I felt it at the time, but just managed to play through it, and then it was the following days it felt a bit sore. I went for a scan and told me I ruptured a ligament in my knee, so just like I say, it's one of them things that happen, and I'm sure it won't be the last. Hope touch wood, it's not. Well, I don't know how to say it, but
you don't want it to happen again.
I obviously don't want it to happen again, but you could say football and the way I play is a good chance of it. But
you don't score many, but you got your first goal of this season very early on. So has that set the platform now? You're back to add to that tally?
Yeah, obviously it'd be nice to add to the tally, but as long as we're winning games, I'm not that fussed. I just want to win games, but it'd be nice to get hopefully maybe one or two more.
And what's it like having Alfie Mawson back? Because I know you guys are pretty close off the pitch as well.
No, he's obviously a great lad. Everyone knows what he can do on the pitch. He's proven it at every level. So, but no, he's good for the boys. He's good in the changing room. He's vocal, and like you say, a few of the younger lads can learn off him and use his experience.
And psychologically, this game, Pompey, one of the bigger teams in this division. We've probably had a run of against teams of a similar size and stature of Wycombe Wanderers. When these big boys come to town, Wycombe in the past have really upped themselves for that game. Is that what it's going to be like on Sunday?
I think so. Yeah, like you say, we've done well against the big teams in previous years, but again, like we back ourselves against anyone. So the boys will be up for it. I'll be up for it, and hopefully the fans get up for it as well.
Only domestic game on TV on Sunday as well. What's it like playing in front of the national cameras?
Like, to be fair, you don't really think about it too much. Like boys will joke about it and things like that. But for me, it's just another game. It's a game I want to go out and win and give my all.
And are you aware there's going to be a bit of extra footage this time? There's going to be a camera in the dressing room, we've been told, and I think the gaffer's going to do a bit more press as well during the game. Is that something you're aware of?
I wasn't until just now, but. Yeah, like I say, it'll be good for the fans to see what goes on behind the scenes, and it'll be good football.
Well, hopefully they see a win and they get to see what it's like in the changing room afterwards.
Yeah, hopefully we get a win and then they can see some celebrations, and it'll be good.
Great to hear from Josh. You can hear that interview in full on Wanderers TV, where Josh gives a bit of insight as to what it's like at the training ground, especially amongst the Welsh contingent. Especially since the World Cup's been underway. More to come on the Wycombe Wanderers Show as well, parts 2 and 3 to follow.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
Still to come on this week's edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show, we'll hear from manager Gareth Ainsworth. He reminds us what time of year it is. Also talks about what he's been doing in his sort of week off. Well, it's not really been a week off, but a break without football over the weekend. And we'll chat to Craig as well to bring you the latest on Wycombe Wanderers Women. But first, it doesn't seem like just over a week ago that the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association annual dinner took place at Adams Park. One person who was back after a very long spell of not returning to the area was a certain gentleman who played as a midfielder / winger for the Wanderers at Lurks Park in the 70s. His name is Graham McKenzie, and I've been catching up with him to find out his earliest memories of his time at the club.
I was 17. I was at Wellesbourne School in High Wycombe, and our teacher, we had a very good school football team, and one of our teachers, John Pratt, not the John Pratt who played for Spurs, but a goalkeeper who'd played for Reading, And he suggested during my sixth form at Wellesbourne that I think he recommended me to Brian, but anyway, I was invited to pre-season training at Bisham Abbey, and that was my first ever experience.
So what were your initial impressions?
Well, obviously I was very young. I was much younger than everybody else. I was very impressed with... The players were all amateur internationals. You had people like, Larry Pritchard, all these top players playing there. And I was just a whippersnapper. So I just turned up, did my pre-season training, didn't expect anything really. And the next minute, Brian Lees asked me to sign on. So I did. And I was delighted with all those very good, experienced players. And I was very impressed by Brian straight away.
Because I understand he had some interesting dressing room techniques.
He didn't speak very much to you. The only time you knew he rated you as a player was if you were selected. He never explained why you were left out. He never explained why you were in. You just when the team was read out, you thought, well, I must have done well this week. And if your name wasn't in it, you thought, well, obviously not my turn this week. But that was my approach to it anyway. That was how I felt about it.
And are there any particular sort of games or incidents that really stand out from your time at the club?
A lot, really, but I was there for the games against Middlesbrough, although I wasn't actually in the playing squad. I think we had a squad of about 18 people, something like that. So I was in the squad but didn't actually get on the pitch at all during that competition. Yeah, to be honest, I used to love the training. We used to have this, I'm sure other players of the era will tell you as well. We had 18 players, and at training we had 9 light blue tracksuits and 9 dark blue tracksuits. And so the training was very, very competitive because you kept those tracksuits throughout the whole season. So it was your team, if you like. Yeah, so a lot of the training was fantastic, really good. And people like John Maskell took it ultra seriously. Well, everyone did, to be honest. I suppose one of the best stories was when I tried to chip John in one of my early training sessions there. We were having shooting practice, and I chipped him. And he chased me halfway around the training field trying to get hold of me. And without using the language he used, which is quite colourful, he explained to me that if he caught me, he'd kill me because I was taking a mickey out of him, trying to chip him. And he said, you would never do that in a game, so don't ever do it in training. Now, things like that stick in your mind when you're 17 because you think, oh, yeah, I could do, you're a cocky 17-year-old and you think you can do that to anybody. But what he said stuck with me throughout my career because you play the lower risk percentage shot, you know what I mean? Instead of, taking a massive risk, you're going to play what you think will work, if you know what I mean. And so my time at Wycombe was more of an education, learning off people like that, and it stood me in good stead later on in my career.
And winning 2 Isthmian League titles, that must have been, quite highlights to be part of that squad.
Yeah, it was, although at the time I didn't realise the sort of how important it was. I was 17, I was just enjoying football, I wasn't really thinking about it, 17, 18, I was just enjoying my time. I came to expect it. That was what was expected, which was also good for me as well in a funny way because it set standards. And if you fall below those standards, you're not going to achieve anything,
And also, being an England schoolboy international, that must have been pretty special as well.
Well, yeah. It was my first year at Wycombe, and as I said, I was playing for Wellesbourne, but I was also playing for the county side, and fortunately got into trials for the England schoolboy team, and played against Scotland at Old Trafford and Wales at Ninian Park. Managed to score at Ninian Park. We had a penalty, and I managed to score quite early on, which was great.
I also understand you're involved in a bit of controversy when it comes to the Berks and Bucks Cup, because...
This story always comes up. I am innocent, honestly, Gov. What had happened was, after my first 2 years at Wycombe, so we're talking summer of 75, 76, I was going off to Cheltenham to do my teacher training. And I did my pre-season training. Brian said, look, you're not going to be involved with us. He was very friendly with Tony Williams, who used to write the Rothmans Football Yearbook. And Rothman sponsored the Isthmian League at the time. And Tony was chairman, I believe, or president of Hungerford Town. So, because I was going off to college, Tony said to Brian, could Graham come and play for us for half a dozen games before he goes to college, because you're not going to be using him, the rest of the season. So I agreed. I didn't drive, so someone used to come and pick me up from High Wycombe, take me to Hungerford, drop me off, pick me back up, and so on. Well, I played half a dozen games, thought no more about it. February time came. I got a phone call at college. I hadn't played for Wycombe all season because, of my commitments at Teachers Training College. Got a phone call from Wycombe. We're short of players, illness, injury, can you come and play? So I got the coach down, played against Chesham. We won, I believe, 4-2. And then, and I scored. And then I went back to Cheltenham on the Sunday. My mum rang me midweek and said, you're all over the papers. Apparently you were cup-tied. And I said, I didn't know anything about that. Anyway, apparently, earlier on in the season, I'd played in one of those games for Hungerford. I'd played in a preliminary round or qualifying round for the Bucks and Bucks Senior and scored. So some astute statistician was looking at the figures and saw G. McKenzie scoring for Hungerford way back in August or September, and then G. McKenzie scoring for Wycombe in February. So I think Wycombe withdrew from the competition. Brian Lee hated the Bucks and Bucks committee anyway. He was always falling out with them. I think they wouldn't let us enter the London Senior Cup, and at that time that was a more prestigious competition than the Bucks and Bucks Cup. So Brian was forever falling out with them. So in many ways he didn't care that we had to withdraw. But the funny story was the previous season we'd won it, and Brian refused to let us receive our medals or trophy. And I can't remember why, to be perfectly honest. Again, it was a falling out with Brian. So for 2 years in a row, we didn't get our medals that we deserved because of various reasons, me being the one for the second one.
And did it feel like at that time, because you get to chat to different players from different eras, and you get the impression that it felt like at the time, their group was especially special. Did it really feel like at the time that you were part of quite a special group at Lokes Park?
Yes, yeah. Although I was 17 and I didn't know any different in the sense that I had no other experience of non-league sides, you knew you were in the presence of some really good players. I mean, I played for the schoolboys. I played for the county for many times. I'd got in the final squad of the Scotland under-15s before I came down, because my dad was in the RAF, so I travelled around a lot. So before we came down to England, when I was about 15, so I was about 14, I'd got into the final trial of the Scotland under-15 team, didn't make it, and then came down here. And so I was a good player in that sense, and I was good at my level, if you know what I mean. But when I went to play for Wycombe, it took it to another level. You could see there's so many players here. And we're talking Larry Pritchard, who was probably about 30 when I signed, and I was 17. The youngest player to me, I believe, was Mick Hollyfield, and he was about 24. So Mickey and all the lads sort of took me under their wing and kind of taught me the ropes and things like that. But I could see that it was a really, really good standard. And Brian he wasn't a disciplinarian, but he was a kind of, he was like a school teacher in the sense that he signed good players and then expected them to play. He didn't really do much coaching. He just expected players to play as he wanted. Well, so there's not much coaching going on, just I've picked you, you're good enough, get on with it kind of thing.
No, it's a strange sort of approach to imagine, isn't it? Especially with the modern game and how football's changed so much.
That's exact, but I think that's the way exactly you should approach it. When I left, because I'd got a teaching job in Gloucestershire, so, at the end of my college, so a new manager, I think it was Andy Williams who came at that point, I could tell didn't really fancy me as a player. And I was going to have to do the travelling down from Cheltenham anyway, so the club agreed to let me go. So anyway, I signed for Cheltenham. But I played for Cheltenham under Dennis Allen and Terry Payne. I played under those two. Now, they were both professional players, had long careers in Freshen. But I didn't have anywhere near the same respect for them as I did for Brian. Because Brian expected the game to be played in a certain way, in terms of your behaviour. It wasn't so much about coaching you, but those lads, Dennis Allen and Terry Payne, tried to coach you, but you You knew your game, if you know what I mean. I felt I knew my game. I didn't need coaching. That sounds arrogant. I don't mean it to sound like that. But they didn't let you express, didn't let you play the way, you sort of grew up to play kind of thing. So in many ways, I think coaching gets rid of people's natural ability sometimes. But Brian just let you play. And it wasn't until I came across Graham Olner, who was my assistant in my fourth year at Cheltenham, and he went off and became manager at AP Leamington, and I went with him as his captain. That's where I met Kim Casey, actually, because Kim was a very young player there who arrived at the same time as me. Graham Olner was like Brian Lee. He let you play, and picking you was enough, if you know what I mean. Picking you was your vindication to play it your own way. And I carried on those values that Brian Lee had instilled in me and the older players throughout my career, actually, until I retired. It was a very good grounding, very good education for me.
So Alan Phillips was another former teammate of yours. I understand there's a current beef.
Well, that's about the Barks and Bucks Cup as well, because the previous year, Alan was sat with me at the dinner, and he said to me, "We didn't get our medals that year because of you." He said, in the following year, he played. I can't remember him playing actually in this one, but he says he played in the 1975 final when we played Thatcham, funnily enough, at Chesham. And we won, and I can't remember much about it. I remember we winning we won about 4-0. And I can remember sitting in the changing room afterwards, and Brian Lee locking the door and said, "We're not going out there to receive our medals." And the Barks and Bucks committee hammering on the door, saying, "Come on, you've got to come out for the presentation." And Brian said, "No, we're not coming out." And apparently, I don't know what the outcome of that was. I know we didn't get our medals. Apparently, the outcome was the trophy was awarded to Thatcham, even though they lost to us 4-0. Huh. And Alan Phillips said he played in that game, so didn't get his medal because of that game, and then the following year didn't get his medal again because of me. So he wasn't happy with me at the dinner.
Also, I need to ask you about your own coaching trail.
Yeah. Well, I played. Obviously, I played for Cheltenham for a few years. Then I went to Leamington, and then I went on to Kidderminster, where I played and with Kim and Graham Olner, the manager. And after I left, I finished playing and decided to become a coach, but found that I was a better coach on the field than I was off the field. What I mean by that was I was a kind of the manager's man on the field, if you know what I mean. I was not the best player, but I was probably one of the most influential players in trying to get the players to play like the manager wanted. I was a kind of the Jordan Henderson of the kind of make everybody else play, but not the best player yourself kind of thing. But when I became a coach, I couldn't put that into practice like I could on the field. I didn't have the same influence, and I didn't have the same ways of getting things across, which frustrated me no end, to the point where, despite being a teacher, I found it very difficult to be patient with players at that level who couldn't do what I thought were simple things. Richard Forsyth took over from me in the midfield at Kidderminster Harriers. Now, he was a very good player, Richard, a better player than me. But if for some reason he couldn't, we had these free kicks and corners I used to take, and maybe I hit them in a particular way, but I couldn't get Richard to do the same thing. So even though the whole team was set up for these free kicks and corners that worked with us, when Richard took over from me, he couldn't hit it in quite the same way. To do with timing, I don't know, trajectory of the ball, whatever. But I couldn't get it across to him how to do it, and I found it immensely frustrating. So much so that even though I got my full badge and everything like that, I never really went into coaching. I concentrated on teaching after that and just gave up the kind of semi-pro stuff, coaching. I just stopped, like mid-30s. I suddenly realised I didn't have the patience for it, basically.
It must have been so special, though, for you to have played for the club, in the town where you went to school and grew up and represented Wycombe at that time. Yeah, it was. Again, I say that I didn't fully appreciate. I appreciate it much more now, looking back. At the time, you're just living the moment. You're not really aware of it. I was aware that it was very unusual for someone. I was the only player, apart from Bodger, who lived in Wycombe. And
Bodger must have been 32, 33 when I signed. I was 17. He must be about 15. I don't know how old Bodger is now, but I'm 66. He must be early 80s or about 80. I know Mask is about 78, 79. So I was the only person who lived in Wycombe apart from Bodger. There were other lads who lived quite close. Dave Bullock at the time lived quite close, but not many people lived there. But at the time, I didn't see that as a big deal. But when you look back on it, you think, actually, that was quite unusual. There weren't many people doing it. And all those England internationals, like Keith Mead and Terry Reardon, all these people who played for years and years, Keith Searle, Steve Perrin, top-level players, and you're part of that. And you think, wow. As I say, at the time, I didn't realise how important it was. But the longer my career went on, I realised how important that time was to me as a player, but also as a person as well.
And you mentioned the dinner. Great for you to be back in the area and, with the likes of Kim again and seeing so many other old faces as well.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, Kim, we didn't realise Kim and I played together for about 10 years, I suppose. Yeah, we played a couple of years at Leamington because when I left Cheltenham, Graham Allner went to Leamington. His first manager's job. He was only about 30, 31. He'd had to retire with a knee injury. And he'd come to Cheltenham as an assistant. And I was captain, and he and I hit it off. We wanted to play the game the same way. He was just like Brian Lee in many ways. And he went off to Leamington to start his own, get his own first manager's job. And he asked me to go as his captain. So I did, and I was 26, and I was the oldest player. He put together a brand new team, and they were all kind of 20, 21-year-olds, including a young Kim Casey. Anyway, we won the Southern League at our first attempt. And we didn't get promoted into the conference, which is now the National League, but we didn't get promoted because our ground was owned by AP Lockheed, the local automotive products company, and our ground was up to scratch. So Kidderminster were promoted ahead of us. So promptly, Kidderminster headhunted Graham Allner as their manager, and he moved across, and several other players moved across with him. I didn't go because I'd signed a contract for the following season, so I stayed at Leamington. And Kim, I believe, went and signed for Gloucester City for a season. And shows what a good goal scorer Kim was. I think he scored something like 28 goals in a relegated team. But then we got back together at Kidderminster, and then we had about 6 or 7 very successful years at Kidderminster. And in fact, I left Kidderminster the day after Wycombe beat us in the trophy final. I believe it was 93, something like that, but around that time. I'd stopped playing by then, but I was coaching, and we parted company then, because that was about the time I realised my patience as a coach was wearing thin, and I hated losing to Wycombe in that final because I felt our players weren't treating it as another game. They were treating it like an occasion. They were all on the coach taking photographs and videos, and they were more concerned about the day out rather than the actual match itself. Of course, having played for Wycombe, it hurt me losing to them, even though they were the better side on the day.
So overall, how do you look back at your time at the club?
Oh, great. As an education, both for football and for life. Yeah, I mean, people like Brian Lee, who's obviously very influential on my life. I remember him saying 2 things to me that kept me going throughout my football career. In fact, when he received his MBE, I wrote to him about this. We were sat in the change room one day, and he went around the whole change room. We'd lost 2 games in a row or something, which was a crisis at the time. And he said, right, we're going to go around the change room. Everyone's going to have their say. And I happened to be at the end of the line. He said, right, what are you going to say? And I said, I don't feel I can say anything. I haven't played the last 2 games, so, And he went, I said, everyone's got to say something. And I went, I've got nothing to say. And anyway, he went around the whole team, and they all had their piece. And as is normal in those situations, the defenders blame the midfield players, the midfield players blame the forwards, and so on, And it came back to me. And he said, you got anything to say now? And I said, no, sorry. And then he went very quiet for a minute. He looked around the whole change room, and he went, you lot ought to be ashamed of yourself. And then he pointed to me. I was completely stunned by this. I went bright red. He pointed to me and said, that bloke there is holding all you lot together. He hasn't been in the team, but he should be. I should be picking him over some of you lot. He said he comes to train every week, he tries his best, he works hard, he never moans, he doesn't get picked, he never moans, he just gets up and gets on with it. And you lot play like you've played for the last 2 weeks. You ought to be ashamed of yourselves. And I'm sat there open-mouthed. I didn't realise he thought that about me, because he never spoke to you, in normal customer. Then he slammed the door and went out. Of course, they all looked at me and went, creep, all the players. I got slaughtered for that. But that kind of thing, I didn't realise I was like that. Do you know what I mean, as a character? Until he said that. And then that was such a boost to me as a player, as a young player, because I was just doing what I thought everyone should do, just get your head down, get on with it. But actually having the recognition, that stayed with me for a long time.
And we find you enjoying your retirement and presumably keeping an eye out for Wycombe's results as well.
I am, yeah. I am. Well, intriguingly enough, when I came down to dinner and met Gareth Ainsworth, he asked me where I was from, and I said Cheltenham, and Wycombe, of course, were playing that the next day, weren't they?
Yeah, of course.
Unfortunately lost. I couldn't go. I play a bit of golf now, and I was playing golf the next day. Yeah, but I would have liked to have gone to that game. Yeah, I always keep an eye out for Wycombe's results. Of course, it's a much different club now in a higher league. In fact, when I came down to the dinner last week, I didn't even know where Adams Park was. I had to go and find out where it was. I had to drive there first to get my bearings, because I haven't been back in all those years.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure to speak to you and to share your memories. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant to speak to Graham, and he now knows where Adams Park is as well. More from the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association next week on the show.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
This is what you might term the final part of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. After this is nothing else. Not till next week, anyway. But first, we'll hear from Gareth Ainsworth as well. Before that, by the way. But also, first, we're very pleased to feature Wycombe Wanderers Women when we can on the show. And I'm very pleased to say that Craig is with us, who we spoke to comparatively recently when you first started your media responsibilities with the team. How's that going so far?
Yeah, good evening, Colin. Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, it's been about, I think, 3 weeks into the role. I joined you guys on here and sort of to talk about and tell me everyone what I was doing, and yeah, we're now maybe 2.5 months in, and it's really good. Like, social media content is out there a lot more, both videos and audio of not only the girls but Carl as well, and turns out a little bit of me as well. So it's all going really well, thanks.
Very nice to feature the behind the scenes bits, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's good to kind of get out there, and also to be able to give the girls opportunities. I mean, the last time I saw you and Luke in person was at the Akinfenwa premiere, and it was lovely to be able to get some of the girls to come along with that, with the management, with Carl and JB, the manager, and the reserve team manager. So just trying to give the girls as much opportunity as possible to be to feel as important as rightly they should be as part of the club, as an overriding sort of thing, if you like.
Don't we sound showbiz? Last time I saw you was at a premiere. yes, like go to a lot of those,
Exactly, every week. I'll see you next week.
Often be seen at premieres. National League premiere, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
But we had Carl and Bobby on last week, of course, because we had a bit of a break with the men's action, and great to speak to them. And Carl was saying, obviously, that the second half of the season now, and results is definitely something that he's focusing on.
Yes, I mean, you don't have to be a football expert to look at the table and see Wycombe, sort of near the bottom of the league. But I think what Carl has installed since the summer and since he took over, and bringing in JB and Dan, his assistant, it's the performances. Now, the results haven't sort of mirrored the performances. I think there's some weeks where, if you ever come down, which I would encourage anyone to come down to Burnham and to check the girls out. They play incredibly attractive football, playing out from the back, getting people in the box, good passing, high tempo, well organised. I mean, hard tackling. It's not where they are in the table that reflects how they're doing. So don't let that put you off from thinking, what's going on. But yes, naturally, the next step is to turn those really good performances into results, which ultimately will kind of push the team up the table. And last season we finished mid-table, And again, like with any league, I mean, look at we've watched the men in League One or League Two, whatever, over the years. You put a run of performances together, and before you know it, you find yourself in the mixer. So that's certainly in this part of the season now where I think Carl and the team will be looking to push towards is that mid-table spot.
And I think it's something really nice about following a team from its kind of embryonic stages, because obviously the new coaching staff and new players coming in as well, and really kind of building something special at Burnham.
They are, Colin. I think since the summer, with the addition of Carl and players that he's picked, and Dan and JB and Ed and everyone, Christian in the under-18s, and everyone that's involved from and there's 3 teams in the women's thing. I don't think people realise that there's a genuine pathway from under-18s to the first team, which is Tier 5. Like, there is a Tier 5 in the women's game. There is a genuine platform for these girls to not only grow as in part of Wycombe, but showcase what they're doing. And with the addition of Carl and the addition of the media attention that they're rightly getting now through the work that you do, that I do, that the Buxbury Press with James does, that we get the message out there all the time. It is almost a bit like a reborn, if you like, a new start from this summer. So now is I completely agree. Now is the best time to be following women's football when the Wycombe Wanderers Women.
And especially as well, the recent results, you're saying not the best, obviously, but there have been a couple of occasions where they've gone 4-0 down, which obviously isn't ideal, but they've battled back to sort of 4-3 and come so close.
Yeah, that's happened in the last month on two separate occasions. So they're, just when you think, this is not going to look good, as a result, the last sort of 30 minutes, they've battled really, really hard. And I think again that almost nearly happened. I say nearly happened again. Obviously, Sunday's result wasn't necessarily a great one with a 5-1 defeat, but they went 4-0 down, then they went 4-1, and for the next sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, it was incredibly close. And the whole game, the girls, they hit the post. The goalie of the other team made some really, Ascot goalkeeper, sorry, made some really good saves. But it just wasn't our day. And I think, on some days that's going to click. And once it starts clicking, I think they're going to absolutely rocket up that league. And I think we're in a position at the moment where we're playing every week, we're chipping away, the girls are working the socks off. 1 week it will just click, and every shot will find the corner, every shot will find the net. And I think someone's in for a bit of a rude awakening, I think, over the next 2 or 3 weeks.
And something you must start to notice as well is the real togetherness amongst not just the team, but the squad as well, or squads.
Well, yeah, this is it. I like having, I've been down to training once or twice, and they all train at the same time on the Burnham pitch as well, which again is a wonderful use of the facility. So they all train at the same time, which allows girls that are maybe in the reserves or in the under-18s to watch first team training and to sort of see how they're developing. It gives them that aspiration to do, and they're all really close. I mean, there's a good group of coaches, and all the coaches talk, and they're really close. And they're, from my point of view as well, they're very easy to work with, very easy to get along with. Everyone's very accommodating, very welcoming. And the girls, I think they're doing great when it comes to asking them to do interviews, whether that's post match, or we had a sponsor down to training the other week in Fibre, which was lovely to see them. We had some of the girls do some interviews for them, for their social media, and they were up for it, and they've gone from being a bit nervous and kind of, what do I do, Craig? How do I say this? To being really open and just kind of embracing this change. So no, a lot of credit has to go to everyone from top to bottom.
So in terms of the second half of the season, what's coming up for them next in terms of opponents?
So this weekend, all the teams are away, actually, which is quite rare. Normally you get one of the teams at home, but the first team are away to Oxford City. So that lovely Wycombe-Oxford rivalry going a long way. The reserves are away to New Bradwell, which is Milton Keynes area. So again, Wycombe MK kind of areas. And the under-18s are away to AFC Stoneham. So 3 away games, which I say is quite rare. Normally one of those teams will be at the Burnham Stadium. So that's this Sunday. The reserve team are flying. They were. I was actually with them. Not this Sunday before, and they won 9-2 All those goals you can see, by the way, on the Wycombe Wanderers Women's Instagram account, FYI. And they're flying, they're top of their league, and they're really pushing hard for promotion. The under 18s, they come against some really high quality development teams, like for their age group, like Derby, Nottingham Forest. So they're playing teams that everyone would have heard of before. And then obviously the first team is, like I say, it's a project. Like, the whole Rome wasn't built in a day. That's what we're doing in the first team. That's what we're pushing for. And I think 3 points away at Oxford, men, women, or whatever. I think that sounds wonderful.
No, definitely a real great opportunity for people to back the Chair Girls as well in the coming weeks, and as you say, really get down to Burnham and support the teams.
Yes, definitely. If like the next 2 or 3 weeks we've got games, but then there is a small Christmas break, but then that reconvenes very early on in January. So if you are looking to come down, again, I would recommend you coming down the following Sunday. Absolutely.
Well, it's been brilliant to have you on. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
You're very welcome, Colin. Have a lovely evening and take care.
You too. Craig, who does some media for Wycombe Wanderers Women, speaking to us here at Wycombe Sound, and obviously wish the Chair Girls all the best in the coming weekends, fixtures, and the coming weeks as well. And we'll be continuing to follow them on the Wycombe Wanderers Show. We return our attention now, though, to the men's game, and of course speak to the manager, Gareth Ainsworth, who did his press session a day early this week, and brilliant to catch up with him and find out how he and the team have been doing without a game on Saturday, what they got up to.
No, they had some time off, Colin. They had, sometimes the mental break's really important for them, and the 4 days that they had, Friday to Monday, I think they took it the right way. I don't think there was any partying going on or going away. I think it was more families and Christmas markets and watching the World Cup. But I think being away from the place sometimes enthuses them, and the hunger to come back and get stuck in again has been great this week, and we're working hard towards the big game on Sunday now, which is the biggest game on Sunday, by the way, the Wycombe Portsmouth game. There's a smaller one on later on in the day. I'm only kidding, but we're looking forward to seeing what we can do against Portsmouth, one of the fancy teams in the league. Underdogs again, probably us, and hopefully we can cause a bit of a shock.
Have you found the break at extra time as well, sort of preparation, really useful?
Yeah, definitely. You need time sometimes as a manager to reset yourself. Never mind the players. Nobody gives us time off, and you are rushed off your feet at times. I'm not known in the slightest. I love it, and I've had some fantastic experiences lately with the NHS and the One Can Trust and the hospitals coming up soon. All important things that I want to make sure that my standing in the community is used in the right way, as well as just being the football manager who gets this place going as well. So yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. Love it all, and hopefully we can have a positive result Sunday.
It feels like a really sort of important time of the year, doesn't it, to be doing those things in the community and really sort of putting the club stamp as well on the area and what influence it can have.
It's Christmas, Colin. Come on, yeah, of course, it's an important time of the year. We've got to make sure that everyone is is happy. It's been a tough couple of years, and probably people are still thinking it's getting tougher, with cost of living and wars and all this sort of stuff going on, that makes me realise just how important that spirit, that community spirit is, and especially the One Can. When I went there and heard some of the stories, it was really perspective for me. We're so lucky, we really are, and these boys, they want to grab every opportunity they can get out on that pitch and kicking a ball around and getting paid for it. It's a wonderful job, and they're all fantastic players and deserve where they should be. But it's nice to have some perspective in life and making a difference to those who need it.
Really nice to have these couple of weeks as well to get injured players back as well, and I guess as you say, a bit of a rest for some of the others too.
Yeah, and we will have one or two back. I think Chris Farino is out on the training pitch now, which is great. We had a couple of international boys back, so even Curtis Thompson's been out there now, which is brilliant to see. So we're getting to full squad capacity, which is brilliant for me. Only what that does is gives me headaches on team selection and sub selection because everyone can't fit into 18. But by the by, it's up for grabs now, and that's how it should be. It's a brilliant place to be, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do on Sunday against Portsmouth.
You mentioned the size of the game. It's a great opportunity, isn't it, for fans to come down and see two title promotion contenders, really sort of going for it.
and stick around for maybe another title contenders of England in the World Cup. So yeah, I mean, what a day, to get down to Adams Park. Rob has tried to make this stadium as accessible and as nice as it can be, but ultimately it's the football on the pitch that gets people in there, and we want to make sure that we're putting on good performances week in, week out down there. We're proud of Adams Park, and we're proud of our home, and a club like Portsmouth coming there. Honestly, again, we still pinch ourselves, because first time they came a few years ago, it was like, right, Portsmouth are a massive club, Sunderland have come, massive club, Sheffield Wednesday are coming, massive club. Now it's sort of commonplace that these teams are coming, and we shouldn't take that for granted. We really have done well here at Wycombe Wanderers. The fans, the players, the staff, everyone involved in the rise of this club, and these moments are special. So yeah, it's a huge club coming, but it's brilliant to be on a level playing pitch with them.
And really nice for anyone who can't make it and to watch on TV. A brilliant opportunity for the club. A great advert for the team as well, with the innovation that's going to be on display on Sunday.
Yeah, Sky have asked for all sorts of things, miking up everyone. I think I was miking up the night before in bed probably, and there's no chance that they can have all that sort of stuff, what I want for breakfast, and I might go as far as letting them see me drive in, but there's a line that you draw. But I will say that on TV, I think you'll get a few more angles, a bit more footage than usual, and the innovation that the world's going that way, isn't it? Access and content and everything. And you look at the Saudi Arabian manager when he was in the dressing room at half time against Argentina, that's gone viral, and little bits and bobs in the World Cup, I think, has projected this into the public eye. And I think Sky want to do a little bit with Wycombe Portsmouth. And again, we should be very proud of that. So yeah, looking forward to seeing, hopefully a good performance, plenty of footage, and then we can all settle down and watch England hopefully beat Senegal.
And also really interesting for fans as well to be able to, I guess, to sort of hear from you at half time and get a real kind of behind the scenes feel as well, I think.
Yeah, they won't be hearing everything, but at half time, it's going well. I'll probably give them more footage than if it's not going well, but we'll see. There was all sorts asked for. Like I say, we'll be as accommodating as possible, but we have a job to do, and I never want to let the bells and whistles take over the actual crux of the job, which is beating Portsmouth and finding a way to do that. If we can do that with all the cameras and all the microphones on, brilliant. But I won't let it get in the way. It's a really important part of the season for us, and Cheltenham was disappointing. I want to get back to winning ways, and no time like the present.
Pleasure to speak to the manager, Gareth Ainsworth, looking ahead to the next game, which of course is the visit of Portsmouth to Adams Park. A reminder that it's on Sunday at 12:30, a televised match. You can hear it on Wanderers TV, and of course follow live commentary here on Wycombe Sound on 106.6. Match build-up starts an hour before, and the kick-off is, as I say, at 12:30. And as I say, with the Sky coverage, they've designated it an innovative game where there'll be plenty more sort of angles and behind-the-scenes footage. There'll be club staff on hand with some summarising. As I say, they're hoping to speak to the managers at half-time as well, so you can get a real kind of insight and feel closer to the action. Hope you've enjoyed the show this week. Back at the same time next week, reflecting on that game, of course, looking ahead to the next one as well, with the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association due to be chatting to Stuart Lewis as well. We'll be following Wycombe Wanderers Women, and my thanks to Craig as well, to Graham, who appeared on the show. Great to catch up with Josh Scowen. Check out Wanderers TV, as mentioned, for the full interview of that, and join Phil for match commentary from the game at home to Portsmouth Sunday lunchtime at 12:30, and then hopefully watching England get a good result against Senegal in the World Cup as well. Have a fantastic week, and look forward to speaking to you next week.